Okay, so this is going to be the first in a series, hopefully, of webcasts whereby I'm going to be chatting to people who have actually had a bounce back loan to find out their experiences. And on the line, I have one such person. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Oh, I'm full of the joys of spring. Okay, now, tell me about your experience with your bounce back loan or bounce back loans, etc. Anything good, bad, ugly? You lay it all on the line.
All of the above, probably. So we have a hair and beauty salon, which we've had for almost 14 years in total, and it's a very organically grown hair and beauty salon. So we changed the sites 4 times and grew our customer base over the years, and then we built this new site a couple of years ago, so about 2 years before COVID struck. It was going well, and of course it's quite expensive doing anything in the UK now. So the fit out and the build out and everything of that was quite expensive and intense, and we obviously had to finance that and get that organized and stuff for it. And then when COVID struck, of course, we were one of the industries that were closed completely.
Exactly, hair and beauty. And I remember at the time I had a lot of people in that market sector who were struggling. So you found yourself wanting a bounce back loan, yep?
Well, yes, it was quite difficult because you did have like furlough schemes and stuff which covers your employees. And one of the things we also did is we paid our employees 100% of their salary. So all our staff are actually fully employed. So we furloughed them and we gave them 100% of their salary. But the one thing that people miss out was these things that they don't always understand how expensive a business is to run. So just financing your debt is quite a few £1,000s. The rent is quite a few £1,000s, and then you've got all the other aspects to it, stock accounts, electricity, you name it. Yeah. So it's not something that you can carry, for instance, on a salary, and if you carry it, you need to have a significant amount of savings to be able to pay for it. So we ideally required one at that stage, and we don't have a massive online business or anything like that, so we're very much very people person type of business, so have a lot of interaction with the clients, stuff like that. So we were with Barclays, and we've been with Barclays for 14 years now, so very, very long relationship in that context. And then when we needed the loan, we went online to try and get it, and it gave an error on our online account because you had to do the application online.
Oh, I remember that. I remember so many people telling me they applied with Barclays at the time, and they'd log in, and then you'd get it was a red message, wasn't it? Error 21 or 23, and then you just couldn't progress to actually applying for the loan.
Yes, and that really hit us. So we ended up calling customer service, and we ended up spending about between 2 and 4 hours a day on the phone for the whole duration of COVID to try and get hold of someone. And every time we get to customer service, the answer would be that it's a very specific team. There's only 20 people dealing with this, and this is flagged with them, and they'll contact us, and there's no way to get in contact with them any other way. So we were very, very on the edge. We were starting to sell everything we can and try to get all our funds together just to keep this thing afloat. And this continued for 3 or 4 months. So we ended up trying to open up accounts with other banks like Starling and HBC and all these things.
Well, that's what a lot of people did, because if one lender couldn't, they were panicking. And I spoke to people who had like 5, 10, 15 bank accounts with different banks trying to get a bounce back loan of at least one of them. Yeah. Yes,
and we went the same way, and we applied for bounce back loans left and right to try and get that, and in the end, it's I think it was Starling that came through that we had it, and it was like we were like on the very edge of being gone.
Yeah, because Starling had it. They had a waiting list. Were you on the waiting list?
Yes.
Oh, so not only are you sort of in limbo land of nowhere with Barclays, because you keep getting an error message and can't actually do the application. You then find a lender, hey, Starling, you get all the details, and then you're on a waiting list. And that waiting list, I recall for a lot of people, was a nightmare because it just seemed to be a random pattern who they were asking you.
Yes, and we also, I think Starling we got on quite a bit later. Originally we went on Tide, because Tide stated that they're going to do that. But the Tide one was a rouge.
Oh, so Tide was that Tide. The problem with Tide was they had the idea to just fire out bounce back loans, but they didn't have the money to lend it. I think it's just over 1,000 or something bounce back loans they managed to give out in the end, and they didn't have enough money, and the government wouldn't lend them the money to lend out. So it was a nightmare. So there was people on that waiting list with Tide in the tens of thousands because they said, "Where am I on the waiting list?" It was a nightmare. But anyway, carry on.
But they weren't honest either. So with Tide, you would chase them and they would say, yeah, you're moving up, it's coming in this way, it's going to happen. So, which was all a ruse, so that never happened. So you kept on trying and you kept on phoning them and to get to that. So that ended up pushing us to only sort of applying for starting us up very much later in the game, which also made it difficult. So in the end, we only got the loan like very near the end of being completely bankrupt and very near us opening up again.
Yeah.
Also, so we started trading, I think, a week after that and getting things in and stuff. And I mean, overall, what's my feeling about the bounce back loans? I personally think if they made it actual grant and stuff, we would have been in a far better situation. The whole structure of how this thing was thrown to entrepreneurs out there and to help entrepreneurs that were put in an extremely difficult position, I think just opened this up for good people to be pulled in all sorts of directions.
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, that because I've got the helpline and I'm taking calls morning, noon, or night on that, people are telling me the exact same thing. Because a lot of people never got any help. You know, there's so many excluded people. They never got council grants. They never got that SEISS grants or anything like that. And the only way they could get any help, and it wasn't really help, it was a loan. You know, and people faced a nightmare journey. And now I'm speaking to so many people who simply cannot afford to repay it. If you sat listening to this and you're in the same boat, give me a bell and I'll talk you through the options. But it was an absolute... So, the scheme launched on May the 4th, 2020. When did you finally get your bounce back loan?
When I can't even remember all the dates around this, but it was a week before the lockdown stopped. Oh. That's when we got it. So it was quite a few months into the process.
Okay, so how's business been since? Have you been able to make your repayments? Have you took all the pay-as-you-grow options, or are you just sat there panicking right now?
We did some of the pay-as-you-earn options in the beginning of it. We do try to. So we're paying it as normal and stuff, and we try to do it. But business-wise, it's an extremely weird time in the UK. You do see some of the stats, but on the ground, it's far worse. If I look at my restaurant stuff, the rates or the revenue is 20% down from what it was pre-COVID, and costs have gone insane. So to give you an example, our energy bill for the hair and beauty salon used to be about £300 a month last year, and at the moment we're paying £2,700 a month. So
wow, how can you make any money? So
you don't. So we're not making money. We're paying everything.
Yeah.
But we're not pulling income. There's no money to be made. And if you look at restaurants and stuff, for example, at the moment there's 12 restaurants closing a day in the UK, and I think it was about 4,500 in the first quarter of this year. And last year this time there were only 200. And I read an article the other day where we were talking to a Michelin star chef who closed his restaurant, and he said, and it's a very good summary of where we are with most businesses in the UK, is there's two types of entrepreneurs now. There's one type of entrepreneur that's selling everything, consolidating everything, hoping that this thing turns around and revenue returns, things go to a better state, and we get to a point where we can pay for things again and stuff. And then there's the other entrepreneur that just doesn't see they can't take it anymore, and they're closing down. Okay. And it's super it's a super pressurized environment, because not only are we all very debt laden now with everything that happened, but revenues down, costs are up, and you can't put costs on customers to the extent that they've risen. And then you've got the direct economy, and then you've got increase in tax from that. You've got a very aggressive HM revenue. I've got a VAT audit at the moment that's gone on for more than a year, and I've had four different HM revenue officers on it. I've had 5 different requests for data. I've got hundreds of invoices that I've provided on that. And for example, there was one invoice which was a £30 co-op invoice, which we've spent a month on and over 30 emails with a total tax of about 20p or something.
You can't make it up, could you?
It's insane. I mean, if you equate the amount of money it costs the taxpayer just to have that officer do that, and the amount of money it costs me to deal with that, and you start taking us through the economy and stuff, no wonder there's no growth. We're being hit from every side. There is, and then of course the overall population is quite angry for numerous reasons. So if you're in hospitality and a customer service business, you're getting a lot of punishment from a lot of people because they're lashing out for anything and everything at the moment.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've noticed that in just wandering into the supermarket. It's like I take my life into the hands. There's a lot of angry people out there. You can't blame them in most instances.
No, I see it in the restaurants where you get a review for a coffee that was too cold or not right or too sour, whatever it may be, and the person would quote and state things that we need to be closed down, and it's the worst thing they've ever tasted and stuff. And then as a business owner, the reality of it is that if I've made 100 coffees today and only one was bad, I've done pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
People make mistakes with it and stuff, but to have people then shout that you need to be closed down on a review, especially given the punishment we've taken and the amount of things we've given up to be employers in the UK, it's immense. I mean, it's me and my wife that own it, so we're a family-run business, and we work. I work about 18 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep all of this for no remuneration at all, to keep it going with the hope of success one day. And the other thing that most people don't recognise is the biggest taxpayer in the UK is actually independents.
Yeah.
And the other thing is also independence causes the biggest multiplier in your local economies. Because, for instance, with our things, we pursue a concept called circular economics. So all our produce, wholesale and stuff, all our things are sourced locally. So we've got, for instance, with the restaurant, our coffee is brewed locally, our bakes that we bring in is made locally, our beer is brewed locally, all of those things. And that causes your local economy to grow at a far significant rate. We also pay a lot of tax, so your multiplier is successful. There's a lot more tax revenue, there's a lot more income, there's a lot more wealth that's being created locally. While if you have a company that's offshore based, like some of these things, and they import a lot of their stuff, they don't add any value to the UK. Yet every single initiative that the government starts pursuing is for them. It helps them to even to do better, while the independents are the ones that's actually carrying this whole thing, and the independents are getting the punishment for
exactly. That's what's really annoying, because right at the start of the scheme, those people who couldn't get any sort of help or anything, and the excuse from the government was, that it's the risk of fraud, Yep, the small businesses who didn't get a penny and aren't fraudulent are the ones they're chasing now for more tax, this, that and the other. It's an absolute nightmare. So you've got your 2 businesses. Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel for both of them?
Well, as an entrepreneur, you always need to be positive. That's why you
I couldn't agree more.
But, for me personally, over life, it's always about when the times become tough like this, to button down and to just do everything in your power to fight the fight until the end. So making sure you get costs down, making sure you become efficient, making sure you do innovative things. So I'm doing all of those things with the hope that if it changes, that I'm there to be able to almost get some repayment for the time I've put in now. But it is very desperate, and it's like this whole thing I was talking about just now in regards to the multiplier being better for independence and stuff. It does seem the whole environment is being designed as very negative towards independence in the UK, and then you've got elements like our tax is way too high in every instance. And the sad thing is, every time someone every time people start shouting about tax, they bring out these tax increases and stuff, which only affects the middle class and independent things like that, and it's sold as that it's getting money from the high earners and that's not the case. It's just becoming very toxic environment in that sense. So I don't know. I hope it's positive. I hope when the next general election comes, there's more change. I am fearful that it does feel like the UK has become a machine that's unchangeable. And the reason why I say it is, if you listen at a character, for instance, like Boris, and the things he quoted previously and stuff, and the things he wanted to pursue, he ended up doing nothing of that. And what my fear is, right or wrong, whatever he wanted to pursue, if a character like that couldn't manage to change the machine or change the direction, who will be able to? Or we go in this until it breaks and then we change. I don't know. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I'll fight it until the end and see where we end up. And I mean, the other thing also to mention about, specifically in context of my business.
Yep.
So we tend to do everything very above the book. So I mean, our employees are Bayesian and registered, and we register for every license and everything you need to have in context of these businesses and stuff. And there's a lot of I know the community very well because I'm very involved in the community. So I know the business community around very well. And to give you an example, there's a salon street away from us, and he deems all his staff to be self-employed, but they're not. So he's not paying Bayesian tax, he's not paying all of those corporation tax and stuff.
So
and the only way. So go.
Yeah, no, I was just saying you're doing everything by the book and it's costing you a fortune. You've got a competitor sort of bending the rules and doing everything to us. Unbelievable. Carry on.
And that specific competitor also classified themselves as a medical facility in COVID. So they stayed open and actually traded through the thing, which they're not. Just because they're doing Botox does not make them a medical thing. But that's the things they did. And to give you another example, there's a nail salon that's about a block away from us. We know the owner, and that owner actually did multiple bounce back loans when it happened from multiple companies.
So he had more. The rules were quite clear. You could have as many bounce back loans as you had companies that weren't a holding company at the top of the structure. But
yes.
If you only have to look at the website every day, there's like people who took out 5. I think there's some records out there. I'm sure there's unbelievable the stories. Yep.
Well, she closed down and she's already liquidated and stuff, and there was no questions asked or anything with it. So she in effect got away with it. So if you look at things like that and you see the struggles we are doing, the real businesses that had to get those loans to pay for rent and hair product bills and those things and stuff. I mean, the sacrifices is immense, and it just doesn't make sense.
So there's people. What the point you're trying to make there is, I'm sure there's businesses out there now looking at those who are just getting off with a disqualification or in some cases nothing, and thinking, well, why should I carry on? Why should I carry on? Which goes back to your original point is, surely to God, they should have made them into grants. But I remember the SNP asked Paul Scully, who was the small business minister at the time, can we turn them into grants? Can we turn them into grants? And he said no, because some people have squirreled the money away, and to write them off when they're sitting on the money. But the number of people who are sat on the money is negligible now, because a fair percentage of them, I think it's 9% have actually repaid the bounce back loan in full. So I highly doubt there's people, they're not going to turn them into grants. And the way it's going, what I'm looking at day after day, if you generally can't afford to repay it, as long as you play the game, it reaches the end of the 12 months when the debt collectors are trying to set up a repayment plan, and it all goes quiet. As long as you're not taking the insolvency route or done anything hideously wrong where they're going to come after you, it looks like you're silently writing them off. And if you look at the latest figures, which came out on the 19th of this month, there's over 5 billion claims have been paid out to banks as part of the guarantee. And there's another 5 billion sat working its way to that point. So 10 billion of the 46 billion has already been paid back out to the lenders, and obviously they're happy.
Incredible. So in essence, again, you're incentivizing, well, not everybody there, of course, are doing things wrong, but you're incentivizing people not to play the rules of the game. And the people that are playing the rules of the game, you're just burning them in every way.
Exactly. It's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate. But if anybody out there listening to this is struggling to repay, don't forget you've got options. Phone the bank up. Tell them you can't afford to repay it. Bounce the ball back to them. Try and get them to set up some new plan for your repayment plan, etc. And what I know a lot of the lenders are now doing is they're telling the people in that position who they can't help, just default, and then you can set up a repayment plan. And the reason they're telling people that is they can put the claim in for the guarantee every quarter. And the rules of the agreement is that they get paid within 30 days of putting that claim in if there's nothing wrong with it. So they're getting the money back, they pass it over to the debt collectors, and the debt collectors will accept whatever is affordable, whether it's £5 a week, £100 a month. So if you're sat there worrying because you can't afford to repay and you're worrying about things like that, have a word with the bank, and then ultimately the debt collector, who can't come to your door, set up a repayment plan, and you all they're after is what is affordable, and that's going straight to the government if the bank have had the money back. So, there's options there, but I know what you're saying. I'm getting contacted by people saying, Mike, why should I bother repaying when he's got off, and I'm trying to run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses and working 24 hours a day as good as. And I understand what you're saying there. So, well, Ed, thanks for calling. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
What I'll do is, I wish you all the best for the luck for the future. If you do get any problems with your bounce back loans moving forward and you need a chat, give us a bell back.
I definitely know who to call.
You're a star, man.